Good morning, everyone. How's it going today? Today I'm going to be introducing you to Inference Providers by Hugging Face, which is probably the best way to talk to open source models with a single API. So you're going to have access to pretty much any open source model that you can think of that is available on Hugging Face. And all of that is going to be available via a single API. So you're going to be able to talk to chat completion models with vision, feature extraction. So for example, embedding models, text-to-image models, text-to-video models, and speech-to-text models for a fraction of the price of proprietary models, and all of that in a single API. I'm going to be showing you how that works in just a moment. For the record, this SDK exists for both JavaScript and Python. In this video, we're going to be focusing on the Python part, but in the coming up video, we're going to be going over the JavaScript version of the same thing, so you can build your application in whichever language you're more comfortable with. So without any further ado, let's actually show you how this works and how you can actually start using this and even deploying it to production. So let's talk about how you're going to select the models that you're going to be using in your application. And it's very straightforward. What you're going to do is you're going to go to huggingface.co, and then you're going to go right here to models. And what's going to happen is you're going to see this little pop-up right here, which will prompt you to activate the inference available filter so that you only see the models that have inference providers available. And to give you a little bit more of the context about how this works, you probably already know that Hugging Face is the largest provider, the largest repository of open source models in the world. And what's going to happen is that a lot of these open source models, you probably want to use them, but in order to use them, you need the infrastructure to serve them. And that's usually one of the most difficult things to do. So instead of setting up the infrastructure yourself, you usually use one of the inference providers that are in the market. And some of the best inference providers in the world are, for example, Grok, Novida, Nebius AI, Cerebras, Fall, etc. And what happens is that these providers put these models into their infrastructure so that you can query the models directly to them. And it's usually way, way more affordable than querying, for example, a proprietary model from OpenAI or Anthropic or Gemini, etc. So this is already great. But there are a bunch of different providers, and every provider has their own models available, etc. So what we do right here at Hugging Face is that you have a single interface to access all the models available in all of these inference providers under a single interface. And actually, there is no markup price by Hugging Face. The price is exactly the same as if you had queried the provider directly, which is already great, but also you get free tokens every month just by having an account at Hugging Face. So it's even more affordable to do it via Hugging Face than directly with the provider. But there you go. That is how this works. And now, in order to actually see which models are available via these inference providers, we're going to click right here to activate the filter. And here you're going to see all the models that are available via this feature. Now, let's suppose that you want to use Kimi K2 thinking. What you're going to do is click right here, and then I'm going to show you how to run this in just a moment. But let's suppose, for example, that you want another kind of model. Now, Kimi K2 is a large language model, but let's suppose that you want another model. Let's suppose that you want something like an embedding model. So what we're going to do is go right here to tasks. We're going to go right here to natural language processing to filter by task. And we're going to filter by, say, feature extraction, which is where the embedding models are. And here you will find some of the most popular and some of the best embedding models in the world. So, for example, QN3 embedding, multilingual E5 large, CodeBERT, etc. And all of these, you can also serve them via these inference providers. I'm going to show you how to do that in just a moment. But it's already, all of this is just already great. So let me show you how you can actually run this in Jupyter Notebook so that you see how easy it actually is to switch between providers and models and how to make everything compatible with your code base. All right, so now let's talk about how you can actually start running this. And in order to do that, you're going to first need your token, your Hugging Face token. So in order to get your token, you're going to go right here to your account. Of course, you're going to have to create your account, and don't worry too much about the pricing so far, because we are going to get free tokens just for having the account opened. So you're going to go right here to your account, and you're going to go right here to access tokens. And from here, you're going to click on create new token. And the thing that you're going to want to enable, you're going to want to make it a fine grained token, and you're going to want to enable make calls to inference providers. Now that's the only permission that you need. And once that is done, you're going to click right here on generate token. I need to add a name. I'm going to name it temp. And let's just create this token. And here's my token. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy it, and I'm going to use it right here. So in order to use this, you're going to have to install Hugging Face Hub in Python. If you're using JavaScript, I'm going to show you later, but there's also the SDK for JavaScript. And once that is installed, you're going to just load your Hugging Face token into your environment API, environment variable. In this case, it is called HF token. I'm using get pass right here just to prompt it, and there we go. So once that is done, you're going to be able to query these inference providers from your free tokens that you have at Hugging Face. Okay, so now let's actually run one of the models. Now in this case, I'm going to show you a few different models. I'm going to show you text-to-text models, so large language models. I'm going to show you text-to-image models, and I'm going to show you an embeddings model so that you see everything. I mean, just a taste of everything that you can do with this inference API. So the first thing I'm going to show you is this model right here, K2 Thinking. So I'm going to click right here, this one. And as you can see, this one right here is available on inference providers, which means that you can run it via this feature that I just showed you. And in order to actually see the code that you can use to actually run this one, you're going to go right here to view code snippets, right here. And here you have basically the snippet to run this model with your API key. You have it available on Python, JavaScript, and also in regular curl. And also you have different ways to run this. If your code base is already integrated with, for example, the OpenAI SDK, you can actually just update your code in a couple of lines to make it use this model right here. So you can still use the OpenAI SDK, but change the base URL to Hugging Face, and then just load the API key from Hugging Face, and you will be able to query this one without changing anything else in your code base. In this case, I'm going to show you how to do this specifically with the Hugging Face Hub SDK. So I'm going to click right here. You can, of course, also do this with request if you wanted to run it directly with curl. And let's just copy right here, and let's go right here and paste it right here. So as you can see right here, this one right here is initializing my inference client. Let me just zoom in a little bit. This right here is initializing my inference client with my API key that I just previously set. And it's also generating a completion right here using this K2 Thinking model that I just showed you. Now, right here, you actually can, I mean, this is optional, of course, select the provider that you want to use. So for example, in this case, we're using Navita. We could change it to any other provider that has this model available, or you can just remove it to have the Hugging Face infrastructure select the model that is available first. You can also select to always run the cheapest option. So cheapest right here. You also can select the fastest if you want, but in this case, we're just going to leave it like that so that Hugging Face chooses the most, the first available provider right here. So let's see what is the capital of France, and let's actually execute this and see what K2 Thinking has to say about this. And there we go. And there you go. We have the chat completion message. Let me actually just show you what this looks like. So I'm going to do response equals to this one right here. And let's actually take a look at the response in a dictionary mode to actually see what it looks like. So you have that the role is assistant, the content of the response is the capital of France is Paris, it used no reasoning, there was no tool call, and you have right here also the reasoning content, which is pretty cool because, I mean, if you probably already know that not all the proprietary providers give you the thinking tokens. For example, OpenAI does not disclose the thinking tokens to you when they ship when they serve a completion. They just give you the final answer and a summary of the reasoning if you want it. But right here we have all the thinking tokens and we have the final answer as well. So there you go. That is how to run open source LLMs. Let's actually take a look at how we can use this exact same interface to generate images. All right, so let's now take a look at how to do the same thing, but with an image generation model. In other words, we're going to be taking a text-to-image model right here. So we're going to go back to models right here. And inside models, we're also going to be filtering by task. And in order to do this, we're going to say image text-to-text. No, let's select text-to-image right here. And here you have a list of the most popular open source models for image generation. Let's suppose that we want to use Flux 1 Schnell in this case. And as you can see, this one right here is also available on Inference Providers. What we're going to do right here is also, just like we did before, we're going to take a look at the code snippets. And right here we have the code snippet for us to use. And just as before, you have the same thing in JavaScript and in Python. In this case, we're going to be using the one in Python. And you also can select the different providers that are available right here. You can use Nibviews and Scale, File, etc. Let's suppose that I want to use, in this case, File. So I'm going to do right here. I'm going to copy this code snippet. I'm going to go right here back to my notebook. I'm going to paste this code right here. And just as before, we're initializing my inference client. This time I'm initializing it with File AI right here, specifying the provider. Remember that if you do not specify the provider, it's going to select the first available provider. And once that is done, you're just going to call it like this. So I'm going to say image equals client.text-to-image. And right here, you pass in your query. So astronaut riding a horse, let's do something a little bit more creative. Let's do cactus with sunglasses. And there we go. Let's just execute this and let's take, oh, that was pretty fast. Let's take a look at the image now. And there we go. So that's a cactus wearing sunglasses. There you go. So that is how you can use text-to-image generation very quickly, very straightforward. As you can see, all we did was copy the code right here, and it basically just took a single line to generate this image. And it was, of course, very affordable because it's open source. So now let's finally take a look at the embedding models. And after that, I'm going to show you a little bit more about the pricing and how it works. All right, so now let's take a look at how to do the same thing, but with embedding models. That's also a very popular use case. So let's go right here back into models. Same thing, select inference available to have only the models that are available to us via inference. And right here, you can select, for example, let's go right here into tasks and let's filter by feature extraction. This is where you're going to find, among others, the embedding models. So let's suppose that we want to use Qwen, for example. Let's select this one right here. And just as before, as you can see, this is Qwen embedding models. Here is the latest proprietary model of the Qwen family, etc. And as you can see, it has a bunch of downloads. You can choose this one, or you can use, for example, multilingual E5 large, which also seems pretty good, with 2 million downloads last month. Pretty good. Also an embedding model. Let's actually take a look at how to run this. So we click right here on View Code Snippet. Just like before, we have the same thing in Python and in JavaScript. In this case, I'm going to be using the Hugging Face Hub library, and just as before, I'm going to copy this right here. As you can see, in this case, this one is being served by the HF Hugging Face Inference API. So we're going to go back right here and let's paste it right here. So just as before, we're initializing just as before the same interface. So it's the inference client right here. And in this case, we're using the HF Inference Provider, as I showed you. And let's just use this endpoint to get the embeddings for this one right here. So for this sentence, today is a sunny day and I will get some ice cream. So let's see how this looks as an embedding. And let's just print the result in a moment. There we go. And here are your embeddings that you can already start adding to your vector database. For example, if you're building a RAG application, for example. So there you go. That is just 3 of the most common use cases for this provider's API. Let me just tell you a little bit more about the pricing and how you can use this in production. Okay, so before we go, I just wanted to tell you a little bit more about the pricing and billing and how this is going to work. So the first thing that I wanted to mention is that you are absolutely not going to be charged by Hugging Face for running your inference through this SDK, through this API. So Hugging Face charges you the same rates as the provider with no additional fees. So there is no markup price. We just pass through the provider's cost directly. In other words, when you query the SDK that I just showed you, the cost is going to be exactly the same as if you had installed the SDK from the provider themselves. So for example, Grok or Navita. And this, I mean, you could, of course, use their SDK, but then you would have to switch the complete implementation and the code if you wanted to switch the provider. Whereas if you're using the Hugging Face SDK, it just changing by changing a single line, you will switch provider and model, and everything's going to be much faster. So just that, I cannot stress it enough. So there is no markup price by Hugging Face, and actually it's even cheaper if you use Hugging Face, because just by having an account, you get free tokens. So if you create a free account, you get 10 cents per month, which is more than enough to run any experiments or personal tests. And if you have a pro account, you get 2 cents, $2 per month, which it's very hard to run out of them if you're using this for experimentation and to play around in notebooks. So there is that. Now, once you have that, let's actually take a look at how the usage works. So you get this very nice dashboard when you create an account and you start using these models, and the dashboard actually shows which models have been used every day and how much each model has costed you. So let me just show you this in real time. So I'll show you right here the billing part. So I go right here, you go to inference usage, and you will get to this very nice dashboard right here. So you will see that the current period usage, I have not spent anything because I'm already within my $2 per month. My billing threshold is how much I have to reach in order to be billed. And so in order to see this dashboard that I was telling you, you're going to go right here to Inference Providers. And here you're going to see exactly how much everything has costed you and how many API calls you have made with each. So for example, you can see right here that I have made quite a few to Qwen3 embedding, and it's costed me less than 1 cent. Then I have made a few to Kimi K2 instruct, then I've made a few to GPT-OSS20B, to Kimi thinking, etc. So there you go. And here, right here, you can see how I've been using this. And you can take a look at this over the month, and this is going to be exceptionally more affordable than if you had been using your own closed source provider like OpenAI or Anthropic's. And let me just show you something else. And there you go. Now, this is something pretty cool that was published by the MIT, and they say that there has been a systematic underutilization of open source models, and this is economically significant. Reallocating demand from observably dominated closed models to superior open models could reduce average prices by 70%. So you could reduce your inference cost by 70% just by switching to open source models. And when extrapolated to the total market, this would generate an estimated $24.8 billion in additional customer savings across 2025. And that would be, of course, even more in 2026, as we are getting into a time when models are being used every single day for pretty much every application. So there you go. I hope that this has been a useful tutorial on how to use inference providers by Hugging Face. Please let me know if you have any questions. I will be doing something similar, but for JavaScript if you want to see that as well. And yeah, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.